building a programming cable for the Motorola GM350 radio and attempting to program the radio.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I've been expecting some parcels today. 2 of them did turn up, 1 of them hasn't. 1 of them was supposed to be being delivered by Royal Mail. They left me a little card yesterday and said it should be delivered today. And, well, it just didn't turn up. And I'm very unhappy about that because I know what it was. Anyway, Amazon have proven themselves to be far better at delivering stuff than Royal Mail. There we go. Because everything else came from Amazon. Which is this little board here. This is a USB to TTL board. I put a piece of heat shrink over that. The heat shrink came from Amazon as well. And so these are 1N4148 diodes, which I'm going to need for this job. Along with something I prepared a little earlier on. This off-cut of Ethernet cable. Because what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to build an interface to allow me to connect my Motorola GM350 to a computer so I can reprogram it. And we're going to test it on video to see if it works. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I will need to get the schematics, because I can't remember off the top of my head what they are. But this design isn't mine. It's actually one I found on the website of George Smart M1 GEO. He says it works with a Motorola GM300, I think it was. And I did see a YouTube video of something similar with a GM350, but the one with the display, not the one without, which is the one I've got. So I'm going to go get the schematic. So I'll just pause the video whilst I do that. Okay, so I've got the schematic diagram. It's a 1N4148 diode with a band facing towards the transmit pin of the TTL board. And it goes anode to cathode. Anode is on... Yeah, let's try to look at this actually. So the anode is on the wire coming from pin 2 of the RJ45 connector, which is the orange one. And that goes straight through to the RXD, and the cathode of that diode goes to the TXD. So I have to somehow solder that on. So I'm just going to leave that in shot somehow. So I've got to somehow solder it onto these pin headers here. I'm not sure if it'll focus on them. There we go. And these pin headers are marked, although there is supposed to be a schematic for those anyway. So I know which one is actually which. So what I'll do is I'll pop that into their helping hands. The heat shrink will help protect that. And I've got the box for these over here. I'll see if they actually included this schematic diagram in the box or not. They've included something in here. Just a little card. Not helpful. So I'll put the other 2 there. And I'll have to look at the Amazon listing for those, so I know which pin does what. So I need the TXD and RXD pins. That's all I need. So I'll have a look at the Amazon listing for those. And there should be a schematic diagram of it. Where is that? Okay, so RX and TX are those 2 pins there apparently. So as long as I don't short anything else out, I should be okay. So RX and TX are those 2 pins. I could take the header off, but that would be too much of a job to do. So I'm just going to try and solder the diodes across the RX and TX pins. I can just confirm that with the device. It's going to be quite difficult to do. I'm going to have to use the camera on my phone to confirm that. Yep. This is going to be the fun part. The camera on my phone's just frozen. That's not helpful. And have that. Bit annoying when I've got to do this kind of thing, because I don't actually have a suitable magnifier. Yeah, RX and TX are these 2 here. So I'm going to tin the RX and TX pins with solder. I'll stick that in my pocket. And put them back into the helping hands. And then tin them with solder. So I'll pop that there like this. So lead solder, not none of this lead-free crap that people like to use these days. Because apparently lead's poisonous. It isn't. If you, well, unless you eat it. Who's stupid enough to eat lead? Sure nothing's going to short out there. Okey-dokey. I also need the ground connection as well, so I'll have to find that. The ground connection is... Ugh. These things have such tiny writing on them, it's unreal. Okay, so on the ground connection on those headers. I have to put my phone into macro mode, that's a bit annoying. There we go. So once it's in macro camera mode, I can actually see it better. So ground is the far end pin. Okay, so I know where the ground is now, so I have to tin that as well. Again with juicy lead solder, not the lead-free rubbish. Lead-free solder just does not lend itself to anything in this day and age. These metal pins might take some of the heat away, which is not ideal. Okay. I'll just redo the TX and RX pins as well, just to make sure. Right, soldering to header pins is... Oh! Slight jump cut there because I've just received a parcel. I don't know what's in it. And it was from the same postie I spoke to this morning. The nice one. Right, let's carry on with this video. So, the jump cut is the postie arriving. Anyway, so I've tinned the pins on that. Now I need one of these signal diodes. 1N4148. Although any high-speed diode would probably do. And I've got to have to look at the schematic again, because the postie kind of distracted me. Anyway, I'm looking for chrome. Yep, so it's the band going onto the TXD pin. So that's the cathode. So what I shall do is I shall put this into the other clip and tin the cathode. So I'll tin it about there. Probably a bit more than that. And my solder's fallen inside my tube. It's alright. Just wet my iron again. Needs to be done. I think I might have put a bit too much on there, but that's fine. So now I've got to figure out which one's the TXD pin again. That's not helpful. TXD is where the cathode wants to go. So okay. So when you go back to my camera in macro mode, if it's still in macro mode, and TXD is... to zoom a bit, there we go. TX, so RX, so DTR, RX, TX, so TX is the third one along. So the cathode solders to that, somehow. So cathode will solder to the third one along. there. So I'll pop that in there, into the helping hands, and grab my soldering iron and see if I can reflow that onto there. Third one along. If it reflows, that's good. If not, then not. Hand shaking. Always does this when I'm doing stuff like this. Okay, cathode is on. Right, so I'm going to snip that down because I don't really want it at that kind of length. So I want my snips, and I shall snip the excess off. I need to snip more than that off, don't I? Yes, I bloody will do. I'll get that in there now. There we go. And the anode goes onto the RxD, which is immediately next to it. But also onto RxD will be one of the wires off this. Which I believe is the orange wire. Before I try and solder any wires on, so what I'll do is I will tin. Let's try and resolder the cathode onto there. Then I'll have to solder the wire on afterwards. So the anode is going onto there. Ooh, again. That's it. And I have to bridge the other connector there. I don't want to do that. There we go. Solder's still hot. We're on now. And then okay. Oh, that didn't quite go to plan. But what I can do is I can attach the blue and white, which is the ground, to the ground pin and put the heat shrink over it. So I need to find the piece of heat shrink I just had. There's one. Because that will obviously stop the ground shorting against anything. Because that will not be very pretty if that happens. So let's see if I can solder this on. My hands always shake when I do fine soldering work like this. I don't know why. It's just a thing. We're still not quite there. See if I can do it again. No, we're still not quite there. There we are this time. That heat shrink can go over that. Perfect. Let's try again with the orange wire, which didn't quite go to plan. Ow, 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 ow. There we go. So that's now all connected up, theoretically. So the next job, heat shrink it all down. Okay, so not the tidiest job, but mostly insulated and done. So I know what was in the package. We'll come to the package in a different video because that's not for this video. And we'll go down to my desktop computer now and see if this thing works. So I need just to chop off this excess here, and then we'll plug it in and see what happens. Because I want to share the moment with you guys, whether it works or not. Because after all, this hobby is all about learning from the mistakes of not just yourselves, but others as well. So if it doesn't work, then you don't do it that way. So let's plug it in. Okay, so it turns out I've done most of the last bit with the microphone facing the wrong way. So here's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to retake it. So I'm not going to show everything else, but it is plugged in and it is working. Not sure if you can see that. I can't see the camera from here because the display's facing the wrong way. Yeah, that's fine. So the next thing to do is plug that radio in, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in. Actually, I should really have a dummy load on this radio. But what I can do is I can kill the power at the power supply if it decides it wants to go into transmit. So that would mean... There we go. Radio is now plugged in. I'll put it on top of the power supply instead because it's close as I can get it. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so it's just the virtual machine starting MS-DOS. We want Microsoft Windows, which is Windows 3.1. I'll get rid of that. Click inside the virtual machine. Double click on the RSS. So that's reading the RSS. We are connected to the computer. Press OK. Won't read from radio, which I believe is that button. Radio read successfully complete. Let's find out what's going on with it. We're going to overview. They've all got PL set. So it's also always sending out CTCSS. I don't want it to do that. But as you can see, I'm not sure if you can actually. I'll put this up on the screen as a picture-in-picture. So I'll just press print screen and you'll see that. I'm not sure if it actually wanted it to do, so come off there in a minute. Right, now I've got the screenshot. So you'll see that up on your screens. And if you look at channel number 2, I'm going to just go back to the virtual machine. It says on the transmit frequency 7425, which is what I was told it was, and receive is 7475. That's not ideal, so that means someone got it wrong. So it read the radio perfectly fine, no problems at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that 7425. I'm going to press OK. I'm going to write to the radio. Successfully completed. Has it successfully completed though? Let's go get my Wushan, whatever you pronounce it, and find out. Okay then, so I've got my handheld for 4 meters. There's a dummy load on this. The speaker's quite loud on this, so it might feed back. Though it certainly does. Mike 0 Whiskey November uniform testing. Mike 0 Whiskey November uniform testing. Okay, so it is receiving now on 425 on channel 2. And is it transmitting there? Hopefully, I've not changed the transmit frequency at all. because I believe that was correct. Mike 0 Whiskey November Uniform Test. And there we go. Mike 0 Whiskey November Uniform Test. The Motorola is into a dummy load, so I technically don't need to identify, but it's habit. Testing 1 2 1 2. Because this is into an antenna, I do identify, but it's not going to get very far anyway. Mike 0 Whiskey November Uniform Test. I say that's good. And that's a success. I have reprogrammed my Motorola GM350 using, I'd say, one diode, one cut-off piece of Ethernet cable and a USB to TTL adapter. So I couldn't potentially program more of these radios if I want. I can buy another one. I could buy one for 2 meters, program that up. I could buy one for 70 sems, program that up. The UHF versions of this I think will work on PMR 446 as well, but that's not really legal. So if you want to do that at your own risk. So the radio can do between 5 and 25 watts. I'm not going to plug it back in now because we're done. And all the data is actually on my screen here. So I can actually go onto the per radio settings and have a look. So we can have a look at all the other settings that I could change, but I'm not going to do. It's telling me that this button's disabled, the square button. It tells me the transmit LED is on and the 2 power levels are 5 and 25 respectively. And power up is designated on channel 1, which is a little annoying, but I'm going to keep it at that for the minute. And everything else is set. Well, it's not set too badly actually. It's set how I would expect it. The per channel thing will cause it to crash because it's got CTCSS enabled, or they call it PL. So that just causes it to crash. That's just a bug with this version of the GM350 software. It doesn't mean you can't program the PL tones in or anything. So we'll end the Windows session and we'll call it that. Fixed. So now I can actually go on 4 meters and know that all my channels tally up. So 425 is now transmit and receive on 425. Exactly as it should be. I call that successful. So very simple to do. Those TTL adapters are available from Amazon. I'll pop a link in the description below. The diodes, I got them from Amazon as well. Link in the description below. Or you could just get the diodes from anywhere that sells them. The 1N4148. Circuits designs that I've seen was by George Smart M1GEO. So I'll put a link to the article on his website in there as well. And yeah, successful. I've done it. Got interrupted by the postman though, but that was for something I've been waiting all day for. So everything's now arrived and let's put this video to bed. So 7-3 for now and I'll catch you in the next one.